Hello everybody. I'm making another Shiv video. This one's a bit different than any of the other ones I've made. After playing both betas for a pretty decent amount of time, I think I got to level 30 something, I have some balance changes, which most likely aren't going to be implemented, at least in time for launch. But I figured I have a lot of experience with the game at this point, and I've also played a lot of other games in genre, and I'd like to get out my opinions of what I think should be done for some balancing between the classes, and I would like to know other people's opinions as well. This is just going to be a couple of basic changes to the game, and mostly focused on giving some of the classes that I think aren't as good some more uses, and doesn't really go into depths on anything about maybe maps or specific combat details, just because I don't have access to like certain data or enough games played, and I don't think anyone has enough time with the combat to know if anything's super abusable or not. Although I do have some videos I want to make when the game comes out about flourish tech and cock tech, which will be fun, but that's for a different time, back when I can actually record the game again. Anyways, let's get started. Before we get into the classes, I would like to just make two general changes to the game. First off, I think ammo boxes should fix shields, and for a couple reasons. Mainly because I really think the way shields work currently and how they're just a one-time use and they break, they're gone kind of system really punishes good play. If you're a good person, most of the shield classes want to survive for a while, so if you're surviving for a while, you're going to be punished because your class will just be slowly become less effective, which none of the other classes work like that, and I feel like that's not a very rewarding kind of mechanic. I think if you can survive for a while, your class should, and provided you back off and do whatever, take some time to heal up and whatnot, your class should still be just as effective as before. I really don't like the current shield system. So going to an ammo box should fix your shields, in my opinion. And then the other change I would make to the game is Quiver should just act like a normal ammo box. Quiver is the worst ability in the game, and it still would be even after this change. But at the very least, it should be buffed at least a little bit, so you get your bandage back from using Quiver, and your shield should be replaced. Obviously, that doesn't happen right now, but if the other change would get made, it would also replace your shield. So I think Quiver should get this buff. It would still be the worst ability in the game. I'd still rather take Horn, Banner, Firebomb, whatever. But it would make Quiver a bit better, and I think it would also work really well with the classes that have it. Alright, moving on to actual class balance. You can probably see these images I'm putting up that are poorly edited. Hopefully that's alright. Let's start off with the Men-at-Arms class. A class I did really like. I played a lot in the first beta, but I did not play much in the second, and you don't see them a lot. I think they're one of the weaker classes in Shiv. Not that you can't do well with them, and I do like the feel of their weapon choices, but one, medkit, very bad healing, is the worst healing ability, and two, I think Guardian just has better weapons and stats than they do. Even though it could be a bit of a preference, the Guardians are much better. I think overall they have more HP, so they're a better tank. They output more healing, and I think their weapons do a bit more damage, are a bit better. Although it can be a bit of personal preference. What I would do to change the Men-at-Arms is I would also give him Banner. Now I know all the footmen are supposed to have medkits, but I really don't. There's no real reason for this. They just happen to all have medkits, and I also think it's a little boring. So I would give Men-at-Arms Banner as their ability, and I would also keep the kind of medic trait. And how this would essentially change the game is now if you want to choose between a Guardian and Men-at-Arms, Guardians would be a more tanky class, kind of more suited for that front lines combat, someone who actually wants to sit in front of the batter and protect it. But medics, unless the Guardian is just like getting like an insane amount of blocks, medics will probably be able to much more reliably get their banner back in time, provided that it's actually in a good spot healing people, because the more the banner would heal, the more the banner would recharge. And you'd probably have to adjust some numbers so that way it's not crazy strong, you don't pop it out. But that's basically what I would change. So then the trade-off would be better frontline melee class, or a class that's a little more agile and has a bit more healing output. And I think that would make it a much more interesting choice, because right now I see like 10 Guardians for every one Man-at-Arms, maybe even more in some cases. Yeah, so that's how I would change the Men-at-Arms. Moving on to the NG class. Another class I wish I would see a lot more of, but so there are games where you see literally none, and every once in a while you'll see like one or two, and generally just on defense. There probably are more changes that are warranted this class, but the one thing I would make right off the bat is just increase the amount of buildings he can place from 2 to 4. Having 2 buildings, unless you're on very specific points, or you have a lot of other engineers with you, which then is just taking up more of your team's resources, just 2 buildings is not enough. I would increase it to 4. Obviously, you take a look at Mordhau, the engineer Mordhau can make a bajillion. You can make 6, and then you can make other buildings on top of that, and then bear traps and all the other stuff, yada, yada, yada. I don't think, not that they're the same game, I don't think increasing the engineers building barricades to 4 would be too game-breaking, and I think it would let him have a lot more impact when defending points, especially when the point's a bit more wide open. Because right now he can really only be effective in very choke pointy maps where you can like just block a doorway or 2. So yes. And it's not like, and you can still destroy the building, so I don't think it would be too overpowered. And, alright. Moving on, let's get to the skirmisher. Now, but the 2 other archer classes are very strong. I put them both in A tier in my tier list video, and besides like the meme comments saying that should be an F tier, I think most people generally agree that crossbows and longbowmen are very strong right now. I don't think they need another nerf, but I will say what I think should be done is I think we should buff the skirmisher, because the skirmisher probably the second worst class in the game in my opinion, and really is very rarely would you want a skirmisher over an archer. But what I would do is I would make the throwing weapons of the skirmisher do extra damage to the longbowman and the crossbowman, essentially making the skirmisher a very hard counter to the other archer classes. I know a lot of people find archers kind of annoying. I don't, but I do think that this would definitely help a lot with that. Now that there's going to be 1 or 2 classes on the field, or 1 or 2 people playing a class on the field that hard counters those archers, can put a lot of pressure on them, because you basically just run at the archers with a shield and then throw your javelin or your axe or whatever and pretty easily destroy them. It'll definitely make some great counterplay. This is kind of like Age of Empires logic, I guess, skirmisher counting archers, but I think that would, 1, just curtail archers a tiny bit more, which is probably what people want, and then 2, give the skirmisher class a much more needed and defined role that it could actually excel in. Because also, honestly, in melee combat, the skirmisher is not that much better than the archer anyways. It is better, but not that much. And at range, like if I wanted to kill another longbowman right now, I wouldn't use a skirmisher. I would just use another longbowman. I would just go longbow v longbow or crossbow v longbow, whatever, instead of using a skirmisher, because I could just output more damage at a further range more reliably. So that's what I would change to skirmisher. And of course, quiver being buffed would also give him more sustainability, because he'd get his bandages back, and you can replace the shield too. So if your shield's about to break and you need to fight an archer, you can pop quiver and get it back. Moving on to the last class I want to change. These are all the classes in C tier, and ambusher I put in D tier. It's also my favorite class, and I think he's the worst by far. He's probably the worst because he has the worst ability in the game, quiver, and he has the worst weapon selection in the game, outside of maybe archers and melee. But out of all the actual melee combat classes, he's essentially the worst. And his only real benefit is that he has 35% bonus damage from behind, which is super unreliable. It doesn't even register very well. Hopefully they can fix that. But that very rarely comes into play. And then most of your weapons already do low amounts of damage anyways, so increasing them by a percentage doesn't really put them that far ahead of just normal weapons. So he's really doesn't excel in any position, and only time he does, which is when he's kind of behind. And also, he's not a terrible duelist, because if his throwing knives can be decent in a duel. He's still kind of outperformed, or very least, he doesn't outperform other classes very well. So to offset that, I kind of gave him, I think most people agree, probably the strongest abilities or like perks in the game. And let me just go through the list right now. I would change the 35% to a bit higher, because right now I don't think you can one-shot a footman in the back with a dagger. I think you can only do other Vanguard classes. I think the damage comes at the 135 or something like that, and footmen have 150. And obviously you can't do it to knights. I would increase it. You can change the numbers a little bit, but I would increase it to the very least you could backstab a footman in the head and kill them with a dagger. because it feels weird like he only do it to one of the melee classes when he's supposed to be this big devastating assassin type. I would also apply that bonus damage to the throwing daggers, and also all these benefits only happen when you have your default weapons out. That way you can't kill one guy, steal his weapon, or pick up a weapon on the map, and then become the strongest class in the game by far. You can still do that, but you'll lose these bonuses if you don't have your normal small weapons like small sidearms equipped. And in addition to that, that bonus damage will be applied to the throwing daggers. I think stabbing people in the back, even if it actually registered properly, it would be super unreliable because people are moving around. And if you're already in melee range of someone's back, you've already won that fight anyways. So the bonus damage doesn't even matter too much. It's still definitely useful. But letting the ambusher use throwing daggers with increased damage at someone's back now all of a sudden makes it way easier for him to get into a position to activate the bonus. If I go on a flank and all I have to do is see and be within close enough range to actively hit my throwing knives, not that it'll still do insane damage because throwing knives don't have a lot of high base damage, and increase it by percentage is not not a huge amount, but it will definitely be doing more damage. And now all of a sudden he has a much greater presence on the battlefield, and he can be useful in positions where other melee classes aren't very useful. Moving on, I would give him 50 health regen. This is not instant health, but it would just be the kind of white health bar you get when you use a bandage or whatever else. 50 health regen on kill, and that's specifically on a kill, with either one of your small starting weapons or throwing dagger. I really like this ability because the way you usually end up playing the ambusher is you usually take duels on the flank, and then maybe get around to the front line and start hacking through. And I feel like this would help him really this would give the class a lot of sustainability, which would make him a lot more unique compared to the other classes, and would help kind of fill his role as an assassin, as you're supposed to just take one good fight, kill someone quickly or kill someone like away from the group and then move on. Kind of reminds me of Bloodlust in Mordhau, but obviously way, way, way less powerful. Where Mordhau, you instantly restore all your health within like a quarter of a second. This is just 50 slow health regen on kill. So it doesn't help you in duels because you can't get the health regen until after the duel's over. It just helps you move from fight to fight with a bit more HP, and helps make up for the class being super weak, and also really really rewards you for doing well with the class. And also helps make up a bit more for the fact that he has the worst weapon selection in the game. And of course you only get this bonus if you're using weapons from his base kit. So you can't pick up a big axe or something and then all of a sudden be regenning, or big maul and then be regenning 50 HP every time you throw a heavy on the front lines and and get a kill, because that'd just be insane. You have to use your small tiny weapons to do it. And lastly, he just move quiet and make less verbal noise. One time I did actually do a proper assassination on a player. He was a Vanguard class on a ballista, and I snuck around him. I even fully crouched because I didn't want to walk because I knew he would hear me. Took my dagger out, and as I was charging up the queue, he heard me and got off the ballista, and I was still able to track him and hit him in the back of the head. But you could, he was totally aware of me once I started attacking him, and that's kind of doesn't really feel like much of an assassin ambusher kind of trait to have. Really loud footsteps and screaming at the top of your lungs and you're about to hurt someone. So if you have, again, your small weapons or your dagger, whatever out, I would give him quieter footsteps, and I would not to the point where you can't hear him, but to the point where he'd be able to get very close to you without you noticing. And then I would take out his the occasional really loud roar or whatever you do in combat, because he's supposed to be kind of a stealthy assassin. Doesn't really make sense the way he's screaming at the top of his lungs. So yeah, those are the changes. Those are changes for all the classes I put in C and D tier. Don't know if I want to nerf anything yet, but I feel like these 4 classes definitely kind of get outshined by the rest of the cast, and I would love to. This is definitely the bottom third. And I would love to see if they are buffed in at least some way to kind of keep them, keep their presence up with the other classes. Alright, let me know what you guys think. I really appreciate all the comments on the last video, or the last tier list video. Someone said they wanted me to do weapons. I just haven't had enough time with all the weapons, unfortunately, and I would feel I wouldn't feel like I could make a good enough video. That, so I don't think I'll do weapons just yet, but I will do it at some point. And maybe I'll make a tier list so if someone else wants to do it, they can just go to like the tier list thing and use my tier list, which you can also do for the classes if you want. Thank you so much. I'll probably make some more Shiv videos. I've been working with some friends to try to break down some of the combat, and I've discovered a couple of really cool tricks that I can't wait to share with you guys when the game comes out. So go, assuming they don't patch them out on launch. So go ahead and hit me a subscribe if you want to see that. Thank you so much for watching.